nice to be here and be a part of this today. Again, I'm Karen Appel, and I have to say, I do laugh at my own humor, so I'm going to tell you ahead of time, boy, this is going to be funny, because, you know, of course, I'm introducing ethics in the workplace, and you know how at the end of a movie, sometimes they do the outtakes? Okay, so I'm sitting and I have this idea, I'm going to just take 20 seconds to do this, and I'm going to call it the intakes, which is the communication that Patsy and I had this morning before I came here. And so what it was is I got a text message from her this morning, and she said, Karen, can you be here today? Can you come here, and can you talk about owning your shit? Okay. And I said,
I use the word.
Yeah. And I said, well, can I say shit, or do I say stop? And she said, shit is good. So, you know, how does this all tie in? You know, own your shit. I'm going to do one other sort of part to this introduction and say I was interviewed by radio host Susan Scher about a week ago, and when I talked about owning your shit, she said, well, what do you mean, ownership? And I said, right, ownership, because own your shit is ownership. Well, how does all this relate to ethics in the workplace and ethics in our business relationships? Think about it. When you're in a state of ownership, you're in a state of self-responsibility, you've stepped fully into yourself, and in order to be in a state of ownership, you have to have a good, strong self-awareness of who you are and what you represent. So when you're approaching any situation in the workplace or between businesses, and you've really stepped in fully and you're in that state of ownership, which I, of course, lovingly like to call own your shit, you're going to really come across as the empowered business person that you are. And so that's what we really mean by own your shit or ownership. You know, pick your way of kind of going about that. And I think, of course, why Patsy asked me to come in and talk about it this way today. When I think about ethics in the workplace and between businesses, I also think about a word that I use often in my therapy practice with my clients, and that is the word acknowledgement. And in a book that I wrote earlier this year, I talk about acknowledgement. This is a little bit different than how we might talk about it in businesses, but it still works. I talk about acknowledgement as second to love. Because think about it, when we're acknowledging another person, how do you feel when somebody acknowledges you in a certain way that shows that they really get you, that they really understand you, that they really see where you're coming from? What an incredible gift that is to give to each other. And when you acknowledge the person that you're in an interaction with in a business situation, and you say something that lets them know that you understand where they're coming from, they're going to want to do the same thing back, and encourages that type of communication. So that's another aspect that I wanted to kind of start the introduction with when we're talking about ethics and we're talking about etiquette, you know, in our business communications. Acknowledgement is something that brings a glue into our relationships and helps us feel like we can all stand on the same ground together. Even if we're coming from businesses that don't seem to relate, there's always a connection, and we can reach that through our understanding and our acknowledgement of each other.